Hello everyone, my name is Alberto. Welcome back to my table. I'm recording with a mic that's maybe not the best quality. I usually voiceover, so I apologize if the audio is not the best. But I had several requests on my hat video where I showed you how one of the ways to make baseball hat, and a lot of people were asking me for the pattern. So I struggle with digital patterns, meaning making my own. So I thought a good option would be to show you how to trace a pattern from a regular hat that you have and you maybe want to copy. So the basic thing is uh, you need a hat of the exact shape you want just to make it easier. This is an Overwatch hat, but you can see this is a 6-panel hat, meaning that it has 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, and 2 in the back. And it's a snapback, so it has this plastic fastening that you can find. Sometimes online is not the easiest thing to find, but you can find it. Otherwise, there's many other options, like in the video I did a Velcro closure. You can put a bit of elastic. It's another option if you make it to your measures. Or there's other types of fastening. You can do a little belt loop thing that's pretty cute. Some leather. So you have options for that. That said, I showed in the video how to do the brim part. So you don't really do, at least I don't really make a pattern for that. I just use the brim as itself as a guide. If you cannot find the brims, which is another thing I've been asked to, I order mine wholesale. But privately, you either can find the polypropylene plastic in sheets, usually at craft stores. It is used also to make bags because they use it to stiffen the bottom of the bed, and it's quite easy to cut. So you can just get a sheet, draw your shape on it, and you cut it. And then you use that as a template to cut your fabrics. Or if you do manage to find them pre-cut, then you just use that as your template, as I showed in the video, which I'm gonna link somewhere if you haven't seen it. That said, so this is a 6-panel hat. If you like a 5-panel hat, meaning that this is joined, it only has a little seam here, think like the one I made in the video, then you could make it with this, but it's just easier if you're not super experienced with patterns, just to get one that's exactly the same. So it's joined in this area, it doesn't have the seam all the way through, and it just has basically a dart up to around here. So start with the hat you like. Then ideally you would use rice paper or tracing paper, like a very lightweight paper. I cannot find a lot around because I draft my patterns, so I use a heavier weight paper, which is these sheets. It's quite heavy, just because I like it and it's more durable, but it's not ideal for this. So I have these old sketches on a very thin sketching paper. So in the sake of recycling, we're gonna use this. The first thing you'll do is undo the back so the hat is moldable. You will notice that the center back, the center front of the hat is stiffened, but the sides are not. So what you will want to do is basically recreate half of the hat, because since it's mirrored, you don't need that many pieces. So what I would suggest is get smaller piece of paper, because we're going just to do section by section, and an easy way to do it is just to cut it with scissors or by hand. So this, again, it's very thin. So when you have your small section, you're gonna take your hat, some pins, and pin your piece of paper on the hat. You will want to start in one direction and keep going in that direction to be consistent, because you're tracing a round form with a flat piece of paper. So we're gonna start at the bottom but you can do the top or whatever you prefer, and just pin the paper to the fabric. And then we're going to continue to pin following the curve. This is a simple shape, so you don't need to be crazy precise. You can pin all the way through, or just put sort of in the center just to keep it in place. That's up to you, really. Then you want to get a pen or a pencil, and you will take your hat. Since the paper is quite thin, you can feel the seams. Otherwise, you just move and check where they are and start marking them. You could also pin along the seams, which makes it easier to see, but it's a bit more difficult with that round of a shape. You just need to make some dots. You don't need to trace the whole line, but it's up to you. And at the bottom, you can just fold it so you can see where it is and mark on the fold. As you can see, this is not precision, really. It's just see what the shape is. And you'll go up to the central seam in the back. Keep sort of forcing the paper to follow the fabric with the hand underneath to keep it in place. That way you make sure to not go too much out of bounds, let's say. And then when you reach the top, there's this little button at the top. You kind of have to decide where the center is. If you're having trouble, just put an extra pin towards the top in order to keep your paper in place. And then you'll just dot the rough center of the button. Once that's done, you'll remove your paper. And we have the first shape. We're gonna quickly join our dots. And this is just sort of making a line that makes sense. So if you use a ruler or something and you see that it's mostly straight, you can just straighten it up. Imagine that the center will be more like the segments of an orange. So it's not absolutely straight. It has like a little point, and then you can curve it out or leave it more pointed depending on the style of the hat. There. So we have our first shape. This is the center back. So it's this. We have our little curve, our bottom, the side, and the center. This exact process you'll do all over the hat. So this is the side. It looks a little skinny compared to the other one I made, but that's because it is not as wide on this hat. However, we're sort of, you can see it dips in here. That's because we're following a softer fabric, so we'll give it a slight bit more bulk. When you try to trace a pattern like that from an actual object, you do have to play around a little bit with the end shape you get to sort of try and logically create that shape. This little notch is this part where the brim actually goes over the first panel onto the second. So we'll mark it because we'll need it for the final pattern. And then we'll join our tip. These sort of shoulders, which are these parts, are about equal. So for example, you see that this in my tracing is equal, although a bit skinny. So we'll do the same when we fix the pattern around a little bit. And then we have only the front left. So this is the front. I put a random notch sort of in the middle just to recognize it. So it's important that you remember which part of your pattern that is in order to then join them without making a mess. So you can see that this is a little messy. A little tip I can give you is, as we said before, these sort of shoulders is slightly higher in the center, but they're about the same height. So we can just kind of eyeball where they are on the other pattern pieces. And as you can see, we'll join and we can do slightly higher on the front, as we said. And we have all our pieces, front, side, and back. Now, what we have to do, pretty simply, is check that they make sense. What do I mean by that? Is we'll take the front, we're gonna cut out only the side, which is this. Well, we can keep the front intact at the moment. So we're just gonna cut this out, trying to keep it as clean as possible. And we can start from the top or the bottom. We're just gonna start at the top for ease. So we'll put top to top, the front and the side, where they join. And we kind of have to go and check by rotating our pattern that they have sort of the same width. And we can add a couple notches that we will keep in the final pattern. So when we sew these two together, we can check that they haven't moved. And as you can see, being that this is traced, it's not perfect. I have some extra. I have two options. Either I remove it or I add it. For now, I'm gonna add here, and we're gonna just leave that just started. Then we can cut the front. I would check, maybe straighten the center a little bit, lower it slightly, like that. So when we join this corner, we'll know it's gonna be straight. So the front is done. Let's cut it just for now. Here we go. We can cut the side, the part we already checked, but again, we're gonna cut the other side for now. And we're gonna do the same thing with the back. So join at the top. Here, as you can see, we're slightly out, but not much. So we'll just add this part. And then we're gonna join that to the one we added before. And then we're just gonna cut our side panel, and we can go ahead and cut our back panel. Here we are. We have our three parts that join all at the top. And this is the front, the side, and the back panel. What you will need to do now is, this is not the final pattern. Or it could be, depending on how you prefer to work. So obviously, we are still missing all the seam allowances. So we know that we have to add them everywhere. And depending on your type of constructions, they could be the same amount on all seams or different. So that's why I'm not saying anything at the moment. But what I would suggest you to do is take these pieces, trace them on a fresh piece of paper. Just very simple. You'll take them and just trace them a bit more cleanly. Possibly not with a pen, but this is a very shiny paper, so my pencil doesn't really work. So ideally, when you have this trace, then you would go and check and add your seam allowance all around. Obviously, you want to clean up these lines as much as possible, but it's just a quick demonstration. But then you go do this thing for all the pieces and you'll get your actual pattern pieces. The last thing to do is to put them together and test it. When you trace a pattern and you do something like this, which is a bit quick and dirty, you do have to test it and then maybe make some minor adjustments. But that's it. So I hope this was easy to understand. I hope it was useful for you. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you aren't. It is a great help for me. But yeah, that's it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Have a great day.